Hello, and welcome back to another episode of International Immersion, a podcast that seeks to capture the combined experiences of people, culture, places, traveling, current events, living abroad, and everything that comes along with them. For today's episode, we have kind of a special treat as my friend Anna, who I previously did a podcast with about U.S. and Japan, similarities and differences in work, culture, so on and so forth. Today, we have the honor of talking with three of her other coworkers who are also from Japan, and it would be great to see collectively what they all think of some of the concepts we previously discussed from each of their own points of view. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you all onto the episode today. It's great to have you all.
Hello.
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 So to begin with, I'd like to go ahead and introduce everyone. So Anna, it's great to see you again, but so whoever would like to go first, you guys can give yourself a little introduction, a little bit about you, where you're from, and and your current profession, and whatever you'd like to say.
Okay, so let me go first. All right. Hello. My name is Hiromi. I'm from Hiroshima, Japan. I moved to US in 2000. So now, I guess this year will be 21 years to live in US. My background is I used to work at the travel agency in Japan, and then I met my husband, who is American, and then we get married, and then we moved to US. That was 2000. Then we actually live in California about 5 years. And then we moved to Tennessee, 15 years now. So I work at some Japanese manufacturing company, and then I'm some part of management position. And then I have 3 children. They actually are grown. One a college student, and then 2 high school student. So my earlier stage of the U.S. Living was actually more focused on, for my children, my family. But now I'm kind of shifting because all my kids are grown, so I'm more focused on self, going to gym and trying to exercise more for my, thinking about my healthy and my future. Right now it's kind of difficult, but actually I like to go to travel and then eat something different culture, different actually country foods, and then just explore not only Tennessee but some other cities. I would like to actually go to see different cultures and then meet some people. But anyway, yes, I'm honored to be here, and then I'm really looking forward to actually having some conversation these ladies and then Sean, and then hope we get some feedback from you guys. All right.
Well, it's great to meet you, and that's quite a story, and I'm sure we'll learn more.
Thank you.
Well, it's kind of hard to top that, but hey, y'all. I'm Mari. I'm originally from Japan, Fukuoka, southern part of Japan, so I'm just like you guys. I was a weird child growing up. I somewhat felt unfit being in Japan, and I was always interested in foreign cultures more so than interested in Japanese culture. So it was always my dream to come to the States to study English mainly. And I came here in 2002 when I was 18, right after finishing Japanese high school. When I first came here, it was quite a bit of culture shock. The first thing I felt was everything was so flat. No tall, cool buildings like New York City, for example. I studied for 4 years in a college here in Jackson. And then I graduated, I got married, and I went back to Japan for 2 years. I taught English to kindergartners for these 2 years. That was so much fun. But I missed living in the States, so I came back. And I'm a mom of two, and I was a stay-home mom for 3 years, but my brain was melting from not contributing to the society as an adult, rather than just being a mom. But then actually Hiromi-san found me here, and that's how I started my career here. And my daughter is 12. She's a difficult tween. And my son is 10. He's still adorable. I love them dearly most of the time.
I think most parents will share that sentiment.
Yes, most of the time. Yes, yeah. So I like being active. I instruct kickboxing. I try to run and stuff like that. But I am super excited to be intellectually and culturally stimulated. And yeah, that's who I am.
Well, that's great and quite an interesting story. And yes, going from Japan to more of the central United States is definitely a bit of a switch.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna be short one. Hi, my name is Key, and I nicknamed the Key. I live in States about 14 years. I was working in Japan as a nurse till 33 years old, and somehow met my husband and got married and moved to the States. I was 34. Somehow I met, Mari introduced, some Japanese teacher in the college introduced Mari, and somehow I ended up working here. But I'm a part-time worker. I'm not full-time, but I'm just, for the first time, working in the States. So I'm learning and have many experience and having fun. Okay. That's it.
Very nice.
Okay, it's my turn. And again, I don't know if you listened to the previous podcast. That was me. I talk about different culture between US and Japan. And I'm back again with this three lovely lady. We have a lunch club every day, and we're talking so many things when experience different culture and culture shock things and having fun. So to compare with this other three lady here, they all living here for so long, for 15 years or more in the US, having American husband. Me, I'm from Vietnam, and I have Vietnamese husband. So definitely my experience is very different. And also I live here only 6 years, so I'm still in the discovery stage, like what is right, what is wrong, what is different, what is same, and still have a lot of difficulty to overcome, but still I'm enjoying too. So about me, I work and I live in Vietnam until I'm 19 years old, and I went to Japan to go to Nagoya University for study culture exchange. And then I came back to Vietnam. I have business. I work with Japanese people and have so much fun. I work hard and I love it. And I have one is a business that I do consulting business with all the Japanese company. If they like to come to Vietnam and open the business or office, I help them, and I really love it. And I never planned to come to US until I had my husband. He really liked US and he liked to study here. So together all separate, I have to decide. So I decided to move with him, and then came here 6 years in a row, and still don't know if you like here or not. I still miss Vietnam so much and miss Japan too. Maybe I'm a little traditional Asian woman. Here, I got a job in this company and work with this three lady here. And I'm doing business planning, which is making sales and budget and cost planning with all their, for automotive industry company. I think that's it for me.
Thank you guys. It's kind of neat to see like we're all four of your backgrounds, where are you from and how your life's progressed, what you have, you're all, and your experiences, and growing up one place, now living in another, and in your case on kind of three places: Vietnam, Japan, and now the US. So that's got to be very interesting because a lot of people here, they spend most of their life in the US, or most people around the world, they spend their whole life in one country and never leave. Or if they do, it's albeit very, very briefly. So I'm looking forward to our discussion phase. So going into our discussion phase, this is where we're going to kind of go into like work differences and different aspects of the US versus Japan. So I'm sure there's a lot that can be said here from all 4 of your collective experiences. So first and foremost, like in general, what would be like something you could say, like in a nutshell, how would you maybe describe like working here versus back in Japan?
I think here it's more casual compared with Japan. Like office environment or some communication to the even my boss. I can actually communicate with my boss here very casual. And then we can actually, joke each other, or we actually greeting, and also maybe it's because it's a southern part of US, so it's a very, very warm. Everybody very friendly. If we have any eye contact, we say hi. So it's everybody polite. But Japan, very more structural. It is not so much casual communication, especially with my boss. So I think that's a very big differences between Japan and then here. Which way, which is not, which is good, which is not bad, which is bad. It's not just more like to me here is more like a friendly environment, I think.
Yeah, you bring a good point there, because I've noticed from doing business in Asia myself, there's much more structure everywhere I've gone, with kind of how it's more hierarchical.
Yes.
Whereas here it's like my job, my boss, he's so casual. You definitely got to get your work done, but he's very casual.
Yes. Especially when you guys understand that when we actually send the email in Japanese to Japanese, our parent company or Japanese people, we got to actually, I got to think about, I got time to, the company name, what division, to whom, Mr. Who or Mrs. Whom. This is, Hiromi with this company. And
look like.
Yeah.
Yes, you can go straight to the topic.
Yes.
Right.
You have to go through it.
Yes.
So a lot more formality, you can say.
Yes. And then, it's very, very, I don't know, we cannot just, as Mari said, we cannot just go straight topics.
Right. Yeah, very indirect and formal. Yeah, so it takes forever for me to form an email in Japanese.
That way, show respect.
Yes.
To coworker or the boss.
Mm-hmm.
But in here, we don't think that's necessary. Sometimes we just say, just need to say one sentence when you want. That's it, instead of having the pages in Japan.
Right.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed too. Like, is that people here, it's like they're definitely, sometimes you need formality, you need order and structure, but a lot of times it's just like, I need the information, just go ahead and send it. Just be direct and blunt. It's definitely a situation by situation occurrence, but much more blunt and direct. And sometimes I get emails from overseas and I'm just like, whoa. Really break down everything.
Yeah.
Well, very polite. That's what I can say, that Japanese email communication, very, very polite.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say that. And that leads us into our first main topic, which we've kind of already touched on, and that would be communication methods. Because I tend, like kind of going off what you've said, at least in my experiences in the US workforce, is that people are very direct. There's not, and people say directly what they mean. If I want something done, I say it. They're polite about it, and it's definitely more casual. But would you say, like, overall, the different types of communication methods that you've experienced here, are they like in line with what you've already said about Japan, or are there other elements that you can kind of go into based on each of your perspective or experiences?
I always find it so interesting that even though we just said that our communication is polite, right, in Japan, professionally, however, based on my observation, because it's hierarchical, what your boss say is everything. So the order that comes from your supervisor or your boss can be extremely direct. And over here, I find the communication between the supervisor and the associates very friendly. And actually, I find it indirect. Words like, could you do this for me? Or whenever you have chance, can you send this email to so-and-so? It's coming from the boss to the subordinate. But in Japan, when it comes to the communication from the boss to the subordinate, I think it's way more direct. It's almost like the way they ask their subordinate to do is like, do this, get this, come here at this time. So yes, so even though in general, Japanese communication is very direct.
I see. So that's interesting. You kind of going off where, here it's very indirect and casual, whereas in Japan there's that culture of maybe like of politeness, but sometimes, as you mentioned, it's very blunt and direct. If I want something done, especially from the higher the order in the company, can be very blunt and direct, as you mentioned.
And then now, of course, it was my experience. Of course, I worked in Japan, but over 20 years ago. So maybe now it's maybe a little bit changing to more like an indirect type of a communication. But still, I can see some little bit differences between the US and then the Japan communication.
Okay. You have anything?
Well, completely different field of work, so I'm not really sure. I don't know. No.
So
I see. So
what I have, just a little bit more additional to what Hiromashi-san said. What I see in here, I really enjoy, and actually I had difficulty from the beginning about small talk. Like America, before we want something or we ask something with other person, instead of saying, hey, I have this work, can you get done this by when and when? No, it's gonna be, how are you doing? How's your children? How's your work? How's your life? How blah blah. Sometimes for the first time, I feel like, oh, it's a waste of time. Even I care about them, but if I'm talking with them about those personal stuff so much and I enjoy so much, and I will forget my question, working question. So instead, why do we just directly go to the work question? But sometimes it's not work that way. So I learned that I have to facilitate, like sometimes we get too close together, we can directly get about work. But if someone not really talk too much, we have to get to know them first before we can actually work with them.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's very, very, commonplace here. Although my own experience, I find it really comes down, on a person to person basis. Some people here are still more just like, very blunt and direct and don't really want to do that. But that's more of a personality issue or more going into those elements. But yes, that's generally one thing that's very commonplace here. People are very big into small talk. And I've noticed, if that's sometimes for some people can be like, oh, this is different. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of going off of that. So would you say there are any email, phone calls, messaging apps, like what communication methods would you say are more preferred?
I think in the US, email is kind of everything. But I feel like in Japan, like face-to-face communication is still the most important part.
Yes.
Yeah. Because oftentimes over here, I hear like, oh, I emailed you. I CC'd you on this. Well, just because you CC'd, me on something, that doesn't mean the communication is completed, It's so one way, but it's convenient. Sometimes I feel like I'm here and then so-and-so is right over there, but we still email each other, like instead of walking to the desk and actually talk about it.
From experience that I have is sometimes I actually combine both. I email them and I also come and talk with them. That way, remind them more and explain more background why I'm asking those questions. So the email part, it actually like an evidence, like remind someone, don't forget about this, because in America, people not really like just talk. People normally prefer in writing. So writing is something like evidence. Oh, I communicate with you. So now you say you don't remember, go back, look for it.
Right.
Yeah, I think for a lot of companies, they want a paper trail. They want everything to be down so they can see if anything happens, they can go back and look at it. But I think that face-to-face communication is the most productive in getting things done, because there's, writing you can interpret writing in so many different ways. Whereas face-to-face conversation, there's speech, body language, etc. It's more, I prefer it as well. But generally, a lot of people here definitely prefer email over face-to-face communication. So I wholeheartedly agree with you guys there. Because I know another thing, especially in recent years, I know things like Microsoft Teams and those types of software become very commonplace. Where I work, we use that all the time for messaging each other, and it's definitely formal, but it's also a great informal tool. It's like, hey, what time are you going to lunch? Oh, I'll cover you for this, blah blah blah, things like that. So that's kind of taken some element away from email, but I think it really depends on the company and what the structure, kind of the employee body and how it's structured.
Mm-hmm. That actually become new normal now when COVID start. Like Zoom and Teams, that's what we normally using. Before, with Japanese company, we always prefer to be like meet in person. So many times when we just have a meeting, people come down from the north to the south, just have a meeting 1 or 2 days and come back. But now Team and Zoom, something like that, actually we use Team that acceptable. And I think that's a more effective way, right? Cost saving.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Teams is nice because you can use it both as an app on your desktop or laptop and also on your iPhone. So you can use it on the go. And that's one thing I like about it, from my own experiences. But yeah, you can't really talk about anything without talking about COVID if it involves at least the last year, unfortunately. So kind of moving on. So you guys have given a little bit of a kind of a synopsis of communication methods compared. Now this is probably the big one. How would you guys define business culture between the two countries? I know it's kind of quite a wide range of things that can be contained in this, but I do think it's something that can be very interesting because every country has its own business culture, which derives from its society, culture, history, etc.
Right. Can you be more specific? Like, for example, which area that we would like us to talk about? I'm sure we have a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a wide-ranging question, but I guess to start with, you could maybe talk about maybe like the company structure, you could say.
Company structure.
Or I could say, every company can be structured in, there's certain ways to structure companies, which kind of goes beyond, culture or societal bounds, but those elements definitely can influence maybe how things are set up, how much authority is in each level, etc. That can vary.
I think there's a global standard for all the company have a S corporation, C corporation, LLC, and all those things. So legal things, Japan and US is the same. The only thing different is I think in US company and Japanese company is how things get a report and what authority that you have. Like Mary said earlier, in Japan, boss is everything. They just only follow what boss says. They're like your immediate boss. So that means if Mary is my boss, I only can report to Mary, and then Mary reports to Mary's boss. But in America, maybe we can have a cross function, like my supervisor, my senior manager, and president at the same meeting, and we can talk like more freely what the idea, instead of like we already have a consensus like in the meeting in Japan. So those kind of things.
I see. So in Japan, it's very black and white, chain of command, who you report to, who they report to. Where in the US, there's that, but also you have more flexibility in who you can report things to or discuss things with, you could say.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely would agree with that.
Maybe it depends on the case, or yeah. I think in general, this might not be just the business culture, but in general, I think the individualism that can be seen in the States, it actually shows because we are Japanese manufacturer, our office is actually open office. So there's no cubicle. There's no walls between anybody. Even the president, of this company doesn't even have his own office. So everybody works in one huge, it's like a studio apartment, right? Everybody works without any privacy. But I think in general, Americans prefer having their own space, right? Having their, at least their cubicles, so that, your business is not everybody's business. So I find that Americans cherish privacy and individualism very much so, much more so than Japanese business culture, I think.
I definitely agree with you. And I know most people that I know, they either work in their own private office or they have a cubicle, but rarely do they have like an open office. Maybe if it's a new startup or something up and coming, when their funds or their abilities are limited. But once they kind of get to a certain point, the individual definitely shows. And that also kind of goes back to a lot of elements of American culture and history. But yeah, that's definitely something that I see all the time compared to when I've traveled. Hence, like the idea of personal space, things like that.
Right.
Because
That's right. Yes.
I travel with some people from the U.S. and like they in crowds, they just kind of wigged out because they couldn't handle it. And I'm just like, sorry guys, you can't get around. They're like, I need my personal space. And it's like, sorry, but there's no personal space here like it is back home.
Yeah.
And then maybe not, I don't know, but based on my experience, like US, we talk a lot of family, about the family, about some small talk that what I'm talking about. And then in Japan and in the business, when I work, not so much those small talk, but after work,
Yes.
we actually go out, with my coworkers, my boss, sometimes, usually after work, okay, let's go eat, let's do something, But in here, after work, we don't pretty much just go home, do your own thing, not actually, okay, let's go eat and then do something, or let's go shopping. With not like this communication we don't have here. Maybe because here I'm not sure the other big city they do more variety options across the work, but I can see some differences about how actually I guess just a small talk, communicate a little bit about the family, some stuff, my personal item, but not deep, I guess, conversation. But in Japan, it's actually, if we find somebody who actually, coworkers, trust each other, we actually have a good time with them after work.
Yeah, I actually enjoy that too. I have coworker before, like the girl just sit next to me, and every day after work, we went to a coffee shop or something, we drink, and she even talks to me everything about work relationship, about love, about her personal thing. Like we not talk too much, but once we talk, will be very deep, personal.
So that's why we don't talk so much in Japan. You and in the office, during working hours, not so much deep conversation about the personal stuff. But after work, maybe private time, we can actually learn a lot of stuff. And then maybe now change because I'm of course married and then I have kids, so I don't do like that what used to be when I was single. But I don't see so much actually differences. Even though I'm single, maybe I don't go to so much every day go out or do like that stuff. So
I think that's a very vivid like difference, because from my work experiences, my coworkers I've had, basically you're very friendly, you're formal in the office, you do stuff, but once you leave the office, it's like there's nothing more at all, unless you maybe are close to one or two. Like I have one coworker I'm close with, so we chat sometimes outside of work hours, but that's really about it. But with my others, never. But I find most people have their own sets of friends they hang out with that are not at work, and there's not like that at work. It's like like as you guys are comparing to Japan, when you're at work, it's like everyone's just focused on the job, getting things done, and afterwards let's all get together and have some fun. Whereas at work, it's more those two are kind of together to an extent, and then afterward there's nothing more. Now, granted, that can vary based on the company's culture, et cetera. Like I know some jobs, like they have like a work kind of a staff appreciation dinner or something once a year or twice a year. But those I think are the main things. And other companies may have more, but it really depends. But definitely there's not that here like there is in Japan or like what I all seen in Korea.
Yeah.
Which I personally think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Just over here, I think it's clear separation of personal and work life.
Yes, it's a pretty very stark difference, or there's a very strong line drawn.
Right.
Like in Japan or even Vietnam, I always make myself available for work. Not just me, but other people too. Like, it's okay to text me after work or weekend if you have a work-related question. But over here, I actually have no one call me as a work like after weekend. Even it's okay to bother. But with the American worker, they're gonna be like, "What?
Right.
It's
how
rude.
rude.
Like,
I'm on my PTO, you know?
Yes. Oh, that is so true. And the only time I would do that, like if my boss or if I'm sick or something came up, hey, not to bug you, and you always add that, hey, I don't mean to bug you on a weekend, but hey, I'm not feeling good, I won't be in the office, blah blah blah, something like that. But yeah, it's very rare that you do that. Yep. The only exception would be maybe if you're on a business trip and it goes through a weekend or something, that's different. But yeah,
people here would take PTO like day off, sometimes whole week. In Japan, if people take 3 days on the road, they will feel guilty.
That is so true. Yeah. That is true. Yes. Even there is an unspoken rule about how many consecutive PTOs you should take.
Right.
Yeah. Even though it's your right, but yeah, that's true.
So it's more like personal right is more priority or somehow in here. That's what I think.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So
people here are very staunch in that, and I know sometimes people take a week off and they're just like, I'm taking a week off, don't bother me.
Exactly.
Like if people here say, I'm going to take my kids to the mountain or somewhere and it's a spring break in Japan, what are you talking about? We have this thing coming up in due date and things, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think there is a assumption that in Japan, work comes first.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And here family comes first.
right.
Which is
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Although, I think, both have their pros and cons, but I mean, just from my personal opinion, I think that, your family should always come first, because that's, family in a way is everything for a lot of people. I mean, it's probably the most important group you have, but at the same time, work is important too, because you have to have a means to provide for yourself. But, there definitely has to be kind of an order. But I think that could be a whole other discussion.
Exactly. I think that's how you approach it, though. Like instead of like, well, I'm about to take 2 weeks off, so I don't really care whatever's, is going to happen next 2 weeks. My microphone dropped. Bye, Or like, hey, in advance, I prepared these things for the next upcoming meeting. So while I'm gone, you can do this and that, just how you approach it, how you leave, the office.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's not a matter of what you do. It's how you approach anything. If you're going to go on vacation, you set up some contingencies or just prep. And I think that shows a lot of respect and appreciation to your coworkers that, hey, I'm not just dropping things and going, all you guys, bye-bye.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And also, I think, you kind of touched, another element of the business culture. I think there's much more, maybe you could say, ceremony and like tradition in Japanese companies versus here in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Ceremonial. Like we like all these like formal events.
Yeah.
I work part-time in Japan in a hotel. Well, that's a event place. And one time I saw someone retire, and because he devoted his whole life for that company. So company decided to make very big party for him. And at the end of the party, everyone's like hold hands together, and then that person will go through that door, like make human art, art. I'm really emotional that time. It's like, oh, okay, this is what people should appreciate for one person spend whole life for the company.
Yes, we Japanese people are corny. Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't say corny, but that just sounds, that's very sweet in my opinion. You know, this person's devoted their life to this company, and then they're rewarding him because they appreciate his contributions and his service.
Right. I think we're a little more like touchy-feely when it comes to like sending people off or welcoming someone, you know, because like I felt like recently, like we had several members who've been here for decades, you know, decades of they're dedicated to work here, and then they just kind of left. It's just like, yeah, you know, it's just casual leave.
We do have some small celebration. Well, say just small cake or something.
Yeah.
But someone really big contribution, we're gonna write like having one small picture with everyone's signature in it. And good luck for your next life.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But Japan definitely they make more formal.
Right. Yeah, bigger gesture for sure.
Yeah. I know, like for a lot of companies, they do have retirement parties or send-offs for people who are going to retire, or you know, like if someone's going to have a baby or something, there's like maybe like they'll get her a card like, "Hey, congratulations," before they go on maternity leave and things like that. So there's definitely that, but I think it just varies.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe one thing, of course, Japanese, I guess, culture. Once you actually start the job, pretty much, you know, maybe nowadays actually people actually transfer to other companies. But I mean, before, once starting this job, usually they actually keep working until retired.
Yes, it's
And then,
a lifelong
yeah.
commitment,
Yes.
just like marriage.
But
Yeah.
here, you get any opportunity, okay, transfer to another job, and then move up to the different careers. But so that's why you know, the people who retired in Japan, maybe a lot of people know. So I guess the relationship in coworkers, people who work at the company, we really respect them a lot. And then because so dedication, right, for the company, and then he devote he or her life for the company. So that's why it's a big deal, the people who actually retired in Japan. Here is, of course, you know, a lot of people, many people still, I mean, same situation, but I've seen that a lot of people actually transfer to the company to actually more focus on their careers. So I think a little bit different. People, I guess, people work with the person, or you know, and how actually celebrate the retired people. And of course, depend on the company size, how many people work there.
Yeah, that is definitely one thing I noticed, especially among younger working professionals in the U.S., is people jump jobs much more, you know, often now. Because I know a lot of people, they say they're lucky to stay in one job or for 2 years or 3 years before they move on. But I do think that certain types of positions, they don't lend for long-term stays for their employees, just because of they're more starting positions, or I think it just depends on a lot of factors there. But I do think a lot of people that get into position, they'll give it 2 years, or they'll give it maybe not even that, and then they'll move on when they get something better. So there's not, I would say people here don't have as much like loyalty to a company. You know, it's more, this is the first job out of school, I'm gonna get some experience. Okay, this is not what I want anymore, I'm moving on.
Yeah,
whereas,
very flexible.
Yeah, whereas in the past here, it definitely was much more like you were describing, where people would stick with one job for, you know, maybe half their working career, their entire working career, you get a retire, get a pension, and go from there. Whereas today, pensions are really much, I'd say, extinct to an extent. So people definitely move around a lot more, and they're don't have as strong of a connection to where they work. They're just like, oh, better off, I'm gonna move on. But it just depends on the person at that point.
Right.
So we need to Americanize that part. We are working too long. One company already.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads into another point that we can discuss, and that would be how like the company benefits and restitution systems work between the two countries.
Restitution.
Like, because I know, like, depending, like in the U.S., like, since I work in the U.S., I know how companies or different types of companies can, what their salaries can be, what the position types pay what retirement benefits do they have, health benefits, things like that. And I know this can definitely vary from country to country quite broadly.
Well, I could say that the health insurance is very high in here. We have to have medical insurance. We have to pay a lot because in Japan, actually, government, we not so much. We don't have to pay so much, right? And, medical fee is much cheaper than here.
The company cover too.
Yes.
Right.
So, I'm not sure about tax side. I don't know taxes, how much actually differences. I don't remember.
Yeah. I became an adult in America, so I have no idea what it's like to be an adult in Japan, so I can't answer these things.
Yes.
I'll go over one by one. So every country, same standard. Health insurance, retire. So over there we have Nanking, retirement, and here we have 401k. So that's two things.
I think
Nanking
is more like social security.
Social security.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And my understanding, our company actually shifting more 401k for the retirement.
Right.
stuff,
I think
right?
in Japan now you can do 401k type of investment.
Yeah, and like in the U.S., the 401k has kind of replaced the pension in many cases. Like, it's the new version of that company. Even a lot of like low-level jobs, they'll start a 401k for someone. So it's pretty accessible at most levels of the in the job market here. It's just a matter of how good they can be and how much the companies contribute.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And as for taxes here in the U.S., there's federal tax, but also the state tax. State taxes are different. I know, like in Tennessee, there's no income tax. In Texas, there's no income tax. Whereas in Illinois, where I'm at, there is an income tax, and same with Missouri next to us. So all those factors play in. So, and Illinois has a higher tax rate. Usually in the U.S., the more liberal the state is, the higher the tax rate is. Whereas it's more conservative, it's the lower. So like maybe kind of going deeper, like, do you guys have a preference from your experiences, like between like this kind of like, the compensation and retirement versus here in Japan? I mean, I can clearly tell definitely Japan seems a little, dare I say better, maybe not better, but it's less expensive than in the US since we're still more of a privatized healthcare system. I mean, there is the government option now, but it's still facing a lot of criticism and
When I work in Japan, I don't really pay attention that much for the tax and health insurance because all that HR actually do it for us, and we don't really have to do tax return like every year like we do in America here.
Yes, right.
So
that's a very interesting thing because almost everyone I've met from overseas, they don't do their own taxes, at least not that I've met. Where in the US, you have to do that. And a few of my Chinese friends are like, "What? You'd have to do your taxes?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, and they're like, "You guys don't like? No, our companies do it. They don't trust us with that." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah. But in health insurance, I don't know why America is so expensive for the medical fee. Like in Japan, probably same with Canada, but maybe better system probably. Like we go to the doctor, don't have to wait for so long, appointment, that's it. Maybe waiting 10 minutes and go there and you can get to see doctor with every like maybe $20. Instead in here, even well, depending on the plan that you have, like for me with high deductible plan, I have to pay a full amount, maybe $120 or $150 for just one visit until I meet full deductible. So it's really expensive here, and I'm trying to not be sick, or maybe not go to doctor every. Maybe I'm not going to doctor maybe just once a year, just for checkup. Thanks God.
It's very expensive here.
Yeah.
I think you guys bring up a really good point, because these are meant for many people who are fighting words over that, because, people hear you talk about socialized medicine, then they like go nuts. It's like, that's terrible. I heard someone had to wait, 10 years for someone's operation, blah, 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 things like that. But at the same time, I think if they actually experienced another healthcare system or more of a socialized healthcare system, of course, there's going to be pros and cons to both. But a lot of people here, there's a lot of, I would say, they don't understand that. And there's a lot of fear about it.
Right.
I think that, the country size, population size all matter in terms of how effective it can be. But I think you can't be completely state run, but you can't be completely private. It should be more of a mix.
I agree. Yeah.
Like when you go over there, you go to the doctor, you pay right away, like pay the same day, and it's very cheap. You don't have to worry too much. And here they're going to send you the bill later, and I don't know how to pay. I call and they take forever to call, and I don't know how, and I forget it, and just go to debt collection agency. Well, this one time I was so scared, like, was that going to be impact my credit score? It's just because they sent the wrong address, or I moved or something.
Right.
So
yeah, that's not your fault. I love it how you go to the doctor's office and then you'll get a bill in the mail or email a couple weeks later, and you got to pay it. And if you forget it, like you said, I know that something like that can happen.
Right.
So over there, things quick and maybe cheaper, faster, and especially children's free. So probably Japan just encourage people having more children because they have many old people. So probably that. Because of that, all the children's free.
Yes, now I'm not sure how old right now, but I mean elementary school they are free, right? Depend on each city or but
generally, like up until college, most schooling in the US is either free or very low cost.
What?
Oh no, we're talking about healthcare.
Healthcare.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Healthcare for children. So in Japan, most of the cities or prefectures, until the child turns like 12 or something like that,
Yeah.
all the medical fees paid by the government. Yeah.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
And then also it's a little bit maybe offline, but when you actually give a birth, government pay you.
Right.
Yeah. Now I don't know how much, $3,000, $4,000
because they want you to have children.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unheard. That's impossible here. Because in the States, I think it's like one of the most expensive countries to have a child.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's one thing to think about when we think about payment, like because cost of living in Japan is so reasonable, except for some other like food, it's expensive. But America, because of the cost of living and the healthcare and everything is so expensive, the salary actually going up every year about 3%. That's the Federal Reserve. They request the company that way. Interestingly, in Japan, the salary has not been changed for 20 years. I did some research and I saw about that to compare the pricing between Japan and US.
That's very interesting. And that leads into the next point we can discuss is like salaries in comparison, like, and how that affects your cost of your style of living based on where you're living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's very interesting. 20 years and they have not upped it.
Because Japan have a deflation, like they're trying to get people buying more, paying more, but people are just saving more. Maybe Japanese people think more about long term. Instead, like America, I give you a house, I give you a car, now you work to death to pay my debt.
Yeah, it's only 30 years.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, that is definitely more common than I'd like to admit, because I think they think 75% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their savings accounts. I think that was a statistic from a few years ago. Now, and among millennials, it's even worse. And then Gen Zers, we'll see what happens with them. But yeah, Americans are definitely a heavy consumer culture. And I think one of the biggest double-edged swords that are credit cards, for example. That's a whole other topic, but I think that's a big thing where in other countries, they're not as credit happy as from my own experiences and just from learning about them. But here, I mean, we love credit cards.
It's okay. We have Apple Pay.
So specifically, would you say that the salaries are better here or better in Japan for the same type of job?
Here.
It's better here, actually. Average American about maybe 50,000 per year, probably. In Japan, instead, depend on your level. Like I have a coworker, she graduated college, and her first year is about $2,000 per month. Well, 24,000 per year.
Yeah.
Which is she only can take care of herself maybe. But in here, $50,000 is depend on where you live. Maybe if in Jackson, like where we live here, it's good to have like $50,000. Maybe if you're not spending too much, you're not eat out too much in a restaurant, you're not going to salon, hair and things too much. You're good with husband, wife, and 2 children. Still okay.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And that depends. Like, the more rural area you're in, the more your salary goes. Whereas in like New York, making $50,000, good luck on that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's actually an interesting sentiment I've heard from Europeans and other people from other countries is that, despite the healthcare and everything else, they like to come here to work, especially when they're younger, because they can make a lot more than back home.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of interesting. Like they have maybe potentially better health benefits or more accessible medical treatments, but they don't. The salaries just there's no comparison in many cases. I think one of my German friends said that she could make $60,000-$70,000 here, whereas in Europe, the same type of job she make $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's certainly a difference.
Right.
But again, so of course, the yearly salary showing looks good, but you have to pay for the high tax in the medical,
Right. Insurance
and then,
child care,
yes.
mortgage.
But at least with taxes, sometimes you get money back at the end of the year. Here, right?
Yeah.
How many children?
Yeah. if you maximize your withdrawal, yes, but with health wise. Yeah. But Japanese companies, majority of the companies, they actually provide free housing, for example, to the new graduate.
That's awesome.
Some transportation.
Right. Transportation, daycare.
Something like $10 per month.
Right.
It's depend on your income.
Right. Yeah.
So I had to pay
that
only
adds up.
$200, well, $400 for my both kids
Yes, that
in
adds up.
Japan,
Mm-hmm.
which is amazing. I pay in here $1,300, which is the cheapest level in US, maybe. Like in big city like California, maybe $1,200 for one kid.
Right. Yeah, childcare, and housing. Yeah, even a place like Jackson, Tennessee, this is not a big city, but the rent, is still very high.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the area, and it depends on especially like if you're in a college town, then the rent will go up because you have a surge of college students in the area. But it just really depends. It also depends on security, the what's available, a lot of factors. But as you said, the rent can vary and healthcare can vary, but the cost of childcare here is out of this roof. Because I'd say, out of this world in a way, because I have a friend, she owns a daycare, and she shared with me the cost, like $270 a week is like on the low end. And I'm just like, good Lord. I mean, that's going to eat a lot of your salary. I mean, that's, some people spend, $1,000 a month, if not more on daycare related expenses. And it's just like, goodness gracious.
Because I know I have 3 kids. I have 3 kids, and then when they're like little, I have to take them to child care for 3 kids, all 3 kids, and then I work here, but pretty much I work just for daycare. Yes, especially summer break.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
summer break is another thing. Yes, that's
So working, of course, working as mom and with many children, and then without any family to actually watch my kids, it was hard.
Right. Right.
I'm glad they don't need any more like a child care or anything. But suddenly, yes, it was a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. I was not sure why I'm working here.
And kind of going back. So, would you say from your collective experiences, do you prefer like the retirement system here, or how you can prepare for retirement and the options available versus that in Japan, or would you say they're on par, or do you have maybe a preference?
So I think it's of course, I'm starting. I started work here about 15 years ago, and then I just started about 15 years ago for my retirement stuff. Not like after college graduate and then starting from the freshman or anything like this. So, but still, I think it's a very good option in US. You can manage yourself more. I'm not sure in Japan right now they have more options, but when I was in Japan, a company took care of it. Okay, every paycheck, we actually kind of saving. So they took that out of my retirement money, that kind of stuff. But here it's pretty much you need to control yourself.
Right.
Nobody else offer you anything like this. You have to control your retirement. So it's actually you have to actually study. You're gonna learn and then you're gonna manage. But I think that in the same time you have a lot of options.
No, that's definitely true because depending on, you definitely have options that are more passive, but a lot of people definitely tend to want to be more involved directly with how they save their money and how they invest it for retirement. So it can vary. So there are different options, and like I find with 401ks, most of them are pretty much you just start it and that you contribute, the company contributes, and you just set it aside. And then a lot of people will then start their own additional funds or like an IRA, an individual retirement account on top of that to give them an extra level of security. Because I know, since I'm technically a millennial, our generation, it's like we're not, at least in my opinion, I'm not 100% sure Social Security will be around or in the same capacity as it is now. So at least I'd say I'm hedging my bets that I'd rather be prepared if it's not here or it's good.
And I see something like news in Japan. The government actually recommended to have $200,000 or $300,000 for retirement, but I don't think it's enough for $200,000-$300,000 for just retirement in US. US, and then also Japan also. Because Social Security in Japan, I don't know how much they're gonna actually cover for. Maybe the age right now for the people who retired maybe okay, but at my age, I don't count anything. Of course, I don't live in Japan anymore, so I don't have one. But you have to. I mean, right now I don't so much trust about Japanese retirement, like Social Security. So I think right now we have to actually work on yourself to saving for that retirement. Invest retirement.
Right.
Yeah, I think people are generally losing confidence in the ability for not having to put it all. They'll take care of it, and people are realizing, oh, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I'm gonna maybe do some things myself as well.
Right.
I think that's definitely a growing sentiment, not only here but other places as well. But yeah, I think that's interesting. And I'd say retiring in the U.S. with $200,000 to $300,000, you could maybe make that work if you moved somewhere very rural. Or a very low cost of living, but I think the what they recommend now is having at least $500,000, if not more, by the time you retire. Or another growing trend I found is that, I'm not sure if it's huge, but it's definitely increasing, is the number of Americans retiring abroad, at least part-time, to Mexico, to the Caribbean, because the costs are so much lower down there that they can make their retirement savings last a lot longer. A lot of them may not want to sever their ties with the U.S. They want to be able to come back, but they'll spend more time down there and then come back to the U.S. From time to time.
Yeah, that's a plan.
That's my dream too. Half of the year stay in Japan, half of the year maybe live in U.S. That's my retirement life. My dream retirement life. Yes,
that sounds good.
I think a lot of people these days, it's like you can use your career, your job, your salary, and how you save for retirement, all those different vehicles. You can try to work them out to your benefit when you do want to retire, to be able to live the life you want when you retire. Because too many people, they get to retirement and they just struggle because they didn't prepare or put the time and effort to do that. Not going to cast judgment on that, but that depends on a number of factors.
Mm.
That's great. I think that's a really, just like company benefits that affect so many things, with your personal lives, your children, retirement, health, travel, everything. So, and we've already kind of touched on work style and, relationship with coworkers. So kind of going in, kind of wrapping up the episode today, was there anything else or anything interesting that you guys thought may contribute to what we discussed, touching on, communication methods, kind of the business culture, company benefits broken down into these factors, and then also the relationships, with your coworkers and your superiors?
Either way, of course, either cultures, but bottom line is as a human. So the communication, email, or verbal, or face to face, or whatever, or online. But I think we shouldn't forget about we are human, not the robot. So only one way communication. It's maybe sometimes good thing, but actually still we need to we shouldn't forget about we actually communicate with human. So that's some small talk. Maybe that's important, and maybe just only for work related topics. Maybe sometimes okay too, but we need to respect. I guess either way. That's
exactly.
Knowing each other. We are different cultures. I'm not gonna be American. I'm Japanese.
Yeah.
And then, not just because the race or anything, just for as each personality and knowing each other and respect each other. That's different culture, different countries, but it's same. That's what I think.
No, very, very well said. At the end of the day, it's all about respect. You should respect everyone, and they should respect you, regardless of where you're from, what you look like, culture, religion, society, whatever.
Yes.
And I think that's very important, and unfortunately, that sometimes does not always pan out.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a deep conversation.
Oh yes, that's that's well beyond the confines of our topic for today.
For me, and one thing that we spend here every day, 8 hours or more, actually spend a lot of time in life. So I make work life is like enjoyable, like my real life. And actually, regardless where you're from, yes, we all have a consensus, same, we're human. So I do care about other people, like maybe sometimes misunderstanding, I don't know how to talk and how to explain the way that I like to ask. But in the end, people understand and how I care about them, and we build a trust relationship, and it's get over everything. Yes. Like we make work successful together, work in team. If we do care about others, we respect others, and like work related, not personal attack or anything. So make work like enjoyable and like family.
Yeah.
That actually make me can stay here that long. Well, 5-6 years for me is long.
You're an American.
How about you, Mari?
Yeah, the same, regardless of where you're from. You're, working in Japan or America. I think it's about humility. I think this is me as an old person. Like I hear a lot of young people saying, overuse the word independent. Oh, I'm such an independent person. I pay my own bills, and I have my own car, my own house, blah, blah, blah. I'm so independent. But dude, you can't live on your own, even at work, like my job. If I don't have others, I can't do my job. Our job, manufacturing, thanks to the associates who are actually making the parts, I have this job, So
Hence, it's a team effort.
Exactly. Anywhere you go, I think you can't forget humility and you always have this appreciation of others, Then naturally, okay, what can I do to contribute to this team instead of that's not my job.
No, and that's a very
It's not my job description.
big point. Yeah, and exactly. And there's definitely it's kind of like, you have to kind of really, there's so many circumstances or situational, I would say, because some things may not be my job, but I can at least refer you to where you need to go or give you advice on that.
Exactly.
Or or if it's something that's really ridiculous, hey, I can't do that. I don't have authority to do that. But at the same time, just don't just brush them off, but just give them somewhere to go. Like if someone comes to me and they need to talk to their department, hey, I'm sorry, this is a wrong department, but I'll transfer you there. Or here's the information to contact them. Or
exactly, because when you're at work, you're not here for yourself. Yes, you're getting paid, but you're here to help others. Exactly. That's the definition of work. So, and
I think that an unfortunate thing that's growing is I think people are just becoming more about what can I gain, and they don't care.
Exactly, it's about me. What's in it for me? I
mean, granted, we all have to be a little selfish for our own well-being. But there's a limit of what you can be, and it's like I'm part of a job, I'm part of a team. But I just find more and more people they don't want to be bothered. I go do my job, don't bug me, and it's just kind of like
exactly.
Okay. Exactly. That's just sad to me because it's like just because you're at work doesn't mean you have to be like like you said, a robot or on autopilot. It's like have some one of my favorite adages is you got to make work fun.
Right. Yeah. Human interaction.
Exactly. Yes. So, well, guys, it's been a great discussion today. I thought it was interesting kind of going into all these different areas of emphasis and kind of breaking them down across the four of you. And, it's interesting to see that, since, we have between all of us, we have 3 countries represented and 3 different, types of work experiences represented. And in all of your cases, you guys have all worked in more than one. So that's really neat. So I just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time and coming on today. And I'm sure most people listening will find this quite interesting. So I appreciate all the time and effort. And this has been another episode of International Immersion, and we will see you on the next one. Please let us know what you think of the podcast. And if you have any interest in sharing your own experiences or ideas, feel free to email us at internationalimmersionpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll happily get back to you.